Hey, Spider Nation, welcome back to another episode of Spider-Man's Tangled Web Show. I'm Jonathan, webmaster of SpiderManFanRave.com, SpiderManFanRave.com. Go on over there. We got some pretty cool Spider-Man news, articles, reviews, editorials, anything you want, you could find over there. Pretty basic URL, SpiderManFanRave.com. All one word, no uppercase, no hyphens, no nothing. It's all pretty basic, all pretty simple. Tonight I'm being joined by James. What's going on, James?
Not much. Just hanging out in my house. Broke my toe this weekend. Hurts. Had a bandage, but the bandage came off. So all I gotta do is keep on taking these antibiotics until the infection that came from the shattered toenail goes away. But yeah, so that's not fun. But I got an awesome Halloween party tomorrow night, so that can at least keep my mind off things for a little while. And that's
Have any
about it.
costumes in mind?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna. The first costume I was gonna do was I was actually gonna go as John Cena. Like literally, and my joke was gonna be that I was gonna dress up since that's a joke between my friends. It's John Cena, but literally going on WWEshopzone.com the last few weeks and seeing how much his merchandise is, because it is kind of expensive. I'm like, fuck no, I'm not a John Cena fan. I'm not going to pay $30 for a T-shirt and an armband or whatnot, where I'm only going to wear it one time to make fun of the asshole.
Apologies to John Cena.
Cena sucks. I don't care. Anyway, so I'm not gonna. And then if I sell it, I'm not probably not gonna make that much money off it because it's only 5-year-olds that are gonna want his merchandise. And so I realized that's gonna be a waste of money. So instead, I just went to Walmart today and I bought some white face paint and black face paint and a wig and a choker, and I'm gonna go as Member of Kiss.
Do 5-year-olds even watch wrestling? I mean, I'm not really.
Because literally, that's the only people who give a shit about them. The 5-year-old little Jimmies in the crowd and the girls who are dragged there by their boyfriends. Everybody else hates his guts.
Because I was going to say, I'm not really familiar with wrestling's target audience demographic. I always assumed it was like 20-something young men.
It used to be 20-something back 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago during the Edge era. Now they're going for the kid demographic because they want the sponsorships.
It's understandable.
This is how bad it is with John Cena. He's their most over good guy, or at least in Vince McMahon's eye, he's the most popular good guy, even though he's not really popular. And they'll try to say something about how much he gets good mixed fan reaction. Me and my brother earlier today watched an old pay-per-view in his hometown in Boston from 2006, and his hometown's booing him. He's the good guy of the match, and his hometown is booing him during the height of his popularity and his first year as champion.
That's probably not a good sign. What have I been up to?
If Cena wins, we riot.
What have I been up to this week? Let's see. I actually got injured myself. I fell down and scraped my arm. That's what's hidden under this sleeve. It's not pretty, so I'm not going to show it on camera.
Trust, I'll bet you $5 my toe is worse than that.
Oh, I guarantee it's worse than that. That's why I'm like, yep, okay. I'm feeling pretty good about my injury right now. What else happened to me this week? Do I just have a bad memory, or does nothing interesting happen to me? I got my haircut. That's about it. I don't know. I guess I'm not the wild party animal that James is. What are we going to be talking about tonight? Well, we're going to talk about Spider-Man. I don't know if that was evident by the title of the show or by anything that we've discussed so far.
I thought we were talking about Daredevil, John. I thought it was a Daredevil podcast. You lied to me.
I was actually under the impression that this was a Iron Fist podcast, but
I thought this was a Batman podcast. Did you hear that Bill Finger's finally getting co-writes to Batman? He's been dead but still, he's finally getting those rights. Literally, it's pretty sad that it took 50 or 40 years after he died for him to finally get the goddamn rights to the character who he had more creation in than Bob Kane did.
You know,
literally, Bob Kane just had the name pretty much. Everything else was all Finger.
No, I will say, James, since your Power Rangers podcast is on a little bit of hiatus right now, just give a quick minute response to this. What are you thinking of some of the Power Rangers movie news that's been coming out recently?
Which one's the bullshit that Collider was posting, or the actual legit news that contradicts everything Collider said?
Let's go with the actual legit stuff, since I don't talk about bullshit here.
Yeah, pretty much. We got the full cast, and they seem awesome. Like the one who's playing the Pink Ranger has been in a few movies, and I haven't really seen them. Some of them are on Netflix. I might check them out later and see how they are. A lot of the cast, I honestly did not know who they were. Like the one who played the Yellow Ranger, I guess is pretty popular. Like if you turn on Radio Disney or Disney, she's the new singing, teen star who's on all the Disney shows and movies and commercials now. But besides that, I had no idea who she is. So I kind of like that how they're not casting, people who are obvious name choices. They're going for the kind of unknowns at least, and I like that, and I like it also too that Saban completely owned Collider after Collider said that the movie is going to be like Star Trek and it's going to take place in the Power Rangers universe and it's not a reboot of the original team and they're all going to have new names, and it was completely bullshit fed to them by a fan who was upset that literally on the fan boards, and he knows who he is. He got banned from every fan board, and he kept creating new accounts and got banned again from every fan board because his fanfic ideas weren't true because he knows better than everybody else. And then he's the one who was the source that was feeding to Collider. And then pretty much Saban said, "It's Morphin time. Jason, Zach, Trini, Kimberly, and Billy, and a reboot is coming to the big screen." It was like completely like, yeah, don't believe that bullshit that broke today about the movie being in the Power Rangers universe and it's being new characters. This is a reboot of the classic characters you all know and love. Don't believe the bullshit.
See, I gotta say, I was actually kind of disappointed because I thought maybe a movie taking place in the Power Rangers universe could actually be kind of interesting, but
it would. But at the same time, you got to get the general audience in there, and if they hear that it's a Power Ranger one that takes place in between the seasons, they'll just think, "Oh, it's the kiddie show, and it's just for the 5-year-olds." Where if you say reboot PG-13 with these high really popular, like up and coming young actors playing these roles, all of the iconic characters you remember when you were a kid, you're getting more chances of getting people coming in and say, "Oh, it takes place in between the seasons, and it's just yet another Power Ranger game."
All right, but moving off of that, on to today's Spider-Man topic. This is actually kind of our Halloween special-ish episode. We're actually going to do nothing Halloween special-ish. We're just going to review a comic that has a vampire in it. Actually 2 to 3 comics that have vampires in them. We are actually going to be tackling tonight the 6 Arms Saga, the infamous story where Spider-Man manages to grow 6 arms. Well, actually, he manages to grow 4 extra arms, but he ends up with 6 arms because he drinks a special potion that is supposed to take away his spider powers. It doesn't quite have the desired effect. And as we 90s show fans always remember, the pain, my sides, oh, why now? Yep, that's all.
Yeah, for the people who are watching it on the video version, I'm wearing my Michael Myers mask. So there you go. There's the Halloween theme.
That's creepy as all heck. I'm going to have nightmares tonight, James. Literally, if you're listening on iTunes right now, be thankful that you are, because that is so scary. And I'm actually not being sarcastic. I'm actually fairly creeped out now. Oh my gosh, there's a hand reaching at the screen. That is not cool. I may have to kick James out of this call. All right, so the 6 Arms Saga is meant to celebrate the 100th issue anniversary of Amazing Spider-Man, because
obviously you think it's a Chandelier song.
Obviously, at the time of the issue's publication, having Amazing Spider-Man hit 100 issues, especially when we know the history behind even just the publication of Amazing Fantasy number 15, having Amazing Spider-Man hit 100 issues is actually a pretty significant milestone, especially since all of those were handled by Stan Lee, at least in some capacity. You know, you can make the argument that obviously Ditko did the plots and stuff for quite a few issues, and there's rumors that Romita Sr. took over a similar role at some point. But obviously, 100 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, pretty significant milestone, especially for the time period.
It's the end of the Stan Lee era.
It's kind of the end of the Stan Lee era, because this is also the part where Roy Thomas actually takes over and does a few fill-in issues for Stan Lee until Stan Lee comes back for about another 6 months or so, and then he finally leaves the book. I believe starting at issue 111. I can't say if that's accurate or not.
That's kind of iffy, because they did that storyline where it was like Conway took a Spider-Man giant size or whatever it was, and they re-released it in Amazing, and Conway rewrote the dialogue to fit what's going on with the book now, but it's all what Stan did. So Stan's also credited because it's his story just getting reprinted with Conway making slight tweaks to have it make sense in the timeline now. It's that election storyline.
Yeah, I do remember that. You're referencing Amazing Spider-Man number 116, 117, 118. That was actually kind of a reworking of Spectacular Spider-Man magazine number 1 that was released back in 1968. And that was reworked towards the not really the middle of Conway's run, but towards the beginning of Conway's run. It was actually the story. It was actually 2 stories before the demise of Gwen Stacy. So that's a little interesting piece of trivia for you Spider-Philes right there. I just use the word Spider-Philes.
And it has one of the worst Aunt May moments of all time, where literally it's that arc, right? Or is that the arc after? Which one's the Hammerhead Gang War one?
That's around 113, 114.
I know it's around that same time because they're on the same essential. And that issue still that any pisses me off. The cops, Jonah, even Robbie, Gwen, MJ, Harry, Peter, everybody's telling her Doc Ock's evil, and she goes, "Oh, it's just a misunderstanding. He explained it all to me." No, I don't believe the rumor. You don't believe your own. You don't believe Robbie. Okay, Jonah, I can see you definitely not believing. Actually, no, wait. Aunt May believes everything Jonah prints in his paper. Why does she not believe in this? She doesn't believe Gwen. Sweet, innocent Gwen. She doesn't believe MJ, who is the girl she wants Peter to marry. She doesn't believe Harry Osborn, why the fuck would she not believe Harry? Because she probably has no personal opinions for Harry because he's fucking Harry Osborn. Flash even, I think, warns her. And Flash is the freaking military guy. And she doesn't believe any of them. Because Ock said, "I'm not evil." Okay, I believe him. No. You are a dumbass, Aunt May.
Evidently, James is not fond of that issue. But anyway, when we talk,
if you read that, tell me if you have any different opinion from Aunt May after that.
We'll get back onto the Six Arms Saga. This is the first issue. Issue number 100 is written by Stan Lee, and the succeeding 2 issues, number 101 and 102, are written by Roy Thomas. They're the first 2 issues that he decided to do his little fill-in arc with. And those second 2 issues, 101 and 102, actually introduced the character of Michael Morbius, a.k.a. Morbius the Living Vampire, a.k.a. Plasma Felicia.
You mean the censorship for the TV show?
Yes, he also has the quality blood suckers on his hands.
Technical term. It's okay, we'll use the technical term plasma. We can get away from the censors. That was all it was.
Oh man, I love the 90s show. The 90s show Morbius is one of the best villains in all of animation.
Because of how bad, literally, ironically, pun intended, how batshit insane their idea was. Okay, we won't call it blood because censors won't allow that. So we'll call it plasma, which is the scientific technical term, so they can't get mad at us for it. And then it's like, we can't have him bite the people in the neck. So we're going to have him suck the blood out of his hands with suction cups.
You know what? I will actually put a picture of Morbius. I will try to put a picture of Morbius with the hand suckers as the thumbnail for this video when it's uploaded after this broadcast. I'll try to do that.
It's to the point. It's so goddamn destroying, almost character assassination what they did to Morbius, to the point that when I think about him, all I think about is that shot from the opening of the show where you see him where he scratches, the spider web when he gets on his arm, and that's all, when I think Morbius, it's that's the only thing that happened. What about all the Morbius stuff with the blood sucking hands? Nope, the opening is the only time we see him. What about when he's the mysterious European who's trying to screw Felicia Hardy? Okay, we can live with that, but everything after that, nope, it's bullshit.
Well, you do have the wonderful line from Spider-Man, "Where'd that refugee from the Rocky Horror Picture Show go?"
Literally, if you rewatch the whole thing, it is so goddamn obvious they're going on the Morbius route, because every other character makes the joke about how, hey, he reminds me of insert Dracula reference here.
What B movie did he come from?
Bela Lugosi in one episode. Literally, he's first introduced. He goes, "Who's your date?" Bela Lugosi. Ha 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 ha. We get it's Morbius. "Who's your date?" Insert other Dracula reference here. Okay. This is getting a little bit too much, Peter. Wow, he must be bat crazy. Okay, you guys can stop it now.
Oh man, 90 show, we love you so much. I honestly do. I love that show so much.
I mean, don't get me and John back on that one episode where literally the last 10, 15 minutes is us quoting every goddamn line of dialogue from that show.
Jason!
So the one I still love, and I used it to, I still love it how, like I said last week, the Spider-Man parts in my personal life that end up relating back to the character, which is ironic. When this one girl I was talking, who's a friend of mine, had this guy who she was flirting with online, and for some reason she thought it was me pulling a prank on her, catfishing her, and then literally I'm in her house with her and a few other friends running out, and she's confronting me about asking me if it's me bullshitting her. I have no way of contacting her. I have no phone out, no laptop, no whatever. And then she gets a message from that guy. And I'm like, well, what do you know? It must be me up there.
I love that line so much. Oh, man, I'm going to go watch the 90s show tonight after this is over. Let's see. What were we even talking about? Oh, yeah, we were talking about some comics that came out. Yeah, some comics that came out about 45 years ago. So Amazing Spider-Man number 100. We'll run down the creative team. Basically, Stan Lee does the script and the plot, and Gil Kane does the artwork. Now, when we're talking about Gil Kane, I don't know if James, if you know this, how long had Gil Kane been on the book at this point? I know he done the Harry Does LSD arc, and I'm pretty sure he done issue number 99. I'm not sure exactly how long of a tenure Gil Kane had.
I would say give or take 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter. It's somewhere around there. But you can definitely see there's almost this weird kind of change that happens where if you see his first kind of runs where he does it from here up until that, I want to say that Hammerhead story we talked about, but it might be a little bit give or take after that even. Where his art style, if you look at it, is not like anything else. It doesn't look like Romita, it doesn't look like Ditko, it's its own art style drawing Spider-Man. And then you get to his second run where if you didn't know anybody, you would think it was Romita. Like, that's where you really get down to the Marvel thing that up until McFarlane came on the book, how it's obvious that Marvel was telling writers, draw like Romita.
Honestly, it's like if you read 121, you would think you're reading a comic drawn by John Romita Sr. That is how
artwork is Romita. It's to the point that I think Kane is only like initial like outlines, but all the details Romita. It's obvious, I think, by the way it looks.
I'm pretty sure Romita even inked that issue, so it probably wouldn't be that far-fetched.
Yeah, I'm not taking shots at John Romita or any Marvel illustrator, but his son has even said as a joke one time, a few times, where he goes, "There'll be issues of Spider-Man that my dad would be inker and I'll be artist, and while my dad swears that he didn't change the artwork, he did. You can clearly tell that he tried to make my artwork look better by adding his elements to it."
Yeah, but we will move into.
Son said he did it for him. That would lead me to believe that maybe he also did it. And I'm not saying he was an egomaniac and he did it just for his own ego, but I could see Marvel probably saying, "You're having Romita Sr. as the inker. He's going to come in. He has to change it to look more like his artwork because that's the iconic way we want to sell the character to toys and T-shirts." I mean, DC was famous for this too. A writer would get on Superman or would do Superman for like a TV show or a movie, and then when they would do comic book tie-ins with ads or one-shots or a new artist would come in, and the covers would be photo, copy, and paste Kurt Swan, who drew Superman in the 60s and 50s. They would take the head of the guy who's actually drawing the book on the cover, cut it out, and would put Kurt Swan's head over it because they wanted to keep the iconic look for copyright reasons.
Yes, so as we move into the recap here of Amazing Spider-Man number 100, we have created and written by Stan Lee, illustrated by Gil Kane, embellished by, the name is cut off on this page here. It's someone Giacoya. I apologize for that. That's actually the publisher's fault because they literally put it out of frame. And Artie Simek as the letterer. And James has asked to take reins of the summary for this issue. So James, why don't you run down what happens in Amazing Spider-Man number 100, sir?
Well, Peter celebrates the 100th issue the same way he celebrated his 50th issue. Sulking, bullshitting about, "Oh, I hate being Spider-Man." Literally, he fights crime as Spider-Man, and he cries about, "Oh my God, I hate my life. I hate being Spider-Man. Holy crap, it's 50 issues later. Why am I still going on about this crap?" And it's all about Gwen because her dad just died, and she blames him. he wants to marry her, but she'll never marry the man who killed her father, even though a simple explanation would probably clear that up. But yeah, he's freaking out. She's never going to love me. She wouldn't want to marry me. I know. I'm going to take this formula and get rid of all my spider powers. It's going to be awesome.
Because doing things on the fly like that has never backfired before, ever.
I mean, this is the Marvel Universe. Peter has not saw guys become lizards, goblins, octopuses, and later on in this arc, vampires because of shit like this. No, it'll be fine. He's Peter Parker.
Oh, gosh. What are we going to do with these characters, James? They just don't learn.
So Peter takes the formula, and in the most creative way, where in any other comic in the Silver Age, it would have been for science, if I could steal a quote from another podcaster. Here it's for Gwen. Go, 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 go. Oh, I'm dizzy. I'm going to go lay down. Here's some artwork where it's clearly me doing the same drug poses as Harry. And then you go to Peter as he's seen all his thoughts about how the world would be like if he's dead. And it's like really weird how, me and Aunt May went to a funeral. This is why I'd be better off dead, because Uncle Ben is dead. Betty was my girlfriend, and now she's with Ned, and it's all Spider-Man's fault. I had to sell photos to Jonah, who hates me. Gwen will never marry me, the woman I love, because she thinks I killed her father. I wish I was dead. Peter Parker, this is your life. And then he's like thinking about the Vulture, and it's a fight, and then Lizard shows up, and Goblin shows up, and Doc Ock shows up, and you find out why. Kingpin, it's because he's dreaming it all. It's all a dream. Oh, and Uncle Ben talked to him in like it's Captain Stacy, but they talked to him like in a Force Ghost, but it's all a dream. He goes to change into his costume, and only to realize he has 1, 2, 3, 4 arms. Dun dun dun.
And James, you forgot to mention how throughout that whole dream, the pain, my sides, my guts are on fire. Yes.
Doesn't feel that here. It's literally, I'm going to take off my shirt. 4 arms pop out. What the fuck?
Okay, James. So what? Give us a few thoughts. What are you thinking of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 100 there?
It's weird. It's a 100 issue of Spider-Man, and you can see where they're going with the dream sequence being pretty much let's throw every villain in the comics into this issue. And it's a creative way of doing it is by him dreaming. It just feels really weird that the whole issue is just, I hate being Spider-Man. I'm going to take this drug. This is going to work. It didn't work for anybody else in this universe, but it'll totally work for me. And then it backfires. And it's like he's so shocked about it. And it's like, well, how did you not see this coming? You have the whole status quo set up because, it's a 100th issue, so you got to set up the status quo. He's remembering Uncle Ben's funeral, and he's remembering Jonah selling pictures to him. He's remembering Ned and Betty. He's name-dropping Gwen. And then you got the death of Captain Stacy. It's just all feels really kind of weird. Like, I don't know how best to explain it. It's just weird to me.
It feels like an acid trip.
Yeah, it is. It's like you're literally going for an acid trip with Peter.
All right. So,
well, it's kind of weird because this is like, well, the second Centennial issue I reviewed, but the third one because you did 300 with Jam. And we're kind of hitting all the Centennial issues of Amazing Spider-Man. And I would say, and we used to say like we would rank them. This one, I don't know how it holds up because it's literally like a Bendis one scene, like how Bendis comics are now. How it's like one long scene, like hey, let's have a whole issue that's just Mary Jane shopping. Kind of like that would be like a Bendis issue of Ultimate Spider-Man. And this is what it is. It's a whole issue of Peter dreaming.
Let's have a whole issue of Aunt May in therapy. Oh gosh, James just completely dropped off the call. All right, well, I guess I'm just gonna take the reins of this podcast for a few minutes. I'll give my thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man number 100 here. Hang on, let me just open up my notes. I apologize for not being prepared ahead of time. I will pull them up on my iPad. I'm very much a tech person.
I'm sorry, John. It's my fault. When I reached over, I accidentally hit the mouse and I clicked out of the call, signed out of the call. So that was my fault. I reached over to get my drink and then I hit the mouse. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. What are you thinking of this issue, James? Do you give it a thumbs up, sideways, down, somewhere in between?
I would give it a thumb sideways because it's not bad, but it's not good. Let me put it this way to sum it up perfectly. For the 100th issue of the Amazing Spider-Man, it feels kind of lackluster. You know, it doesn't feel like it holds like for 100th issue. This seems like maybe the issue before, like 99, and then 100 is the issue later. Whereas this one felt like for a 100th episode of a TV show, we're just going to do a clip show or a rerun, and then I'm going to call it the 100th episode. That's what it felt like to me.
All right. I'll give my thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man number 100 here. I do have to say the biggest thing I took away from this issue, I did actually like the dream sequence. I thought it was a pretty clever I thought it was a pretty clever idea, and I did like how it was done. I thought it was done pretty well. I like seeing Spider-Man fight a lot of his classic villains, and I thought that the premise was decent enough. But the thing that really drags the issue down for me, and I don't want to come off as the jerk here, but I really don't like the artwork. I really do not like the artwork. It's so, to me, it feels so dirty, and I don't mean dirty as in like sexual. I mean like dirty as in dirty. Like,
I think it's because it's so out there. Like literally, you go to any artwork before this and after this, it's very weird compared to what you've seen, with Ramita and what you're going to see with Ross Andrew, who in a year is going to become the new permanent ongoing artist of Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's like I think when we described it as like an acid trip, the artwork kind of feels like that. It doesn't feel it.
Well, there's a panel where Peter's laying in the bed, and I kid you not, the perspective of the photo is up his nose. I think photography class. It's literally your eyes, and it's like a photography. That's how they got, obviously the part in the center where you want everybody to be the main focus and everything else around it. It's the nose.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting shot, and I got to say, I'm just not a fan of the art style. It feels a little bit dirty to me. It is a little bit out there, and I think that the idea of an acid trip while you're looking at it, I think that is kind of what it feels like a little bit to me. Not so much with the story, but with the artwork. Like I said, I did like the dream sequence. I made the joke about, oh my gosh, the pain in my sides. Obviously, that's a 90s show reference for those of you who may not have seen it, or those of you who may have seen it. I did like the cliffhanger at the end with the 6 arms. I thought that was pretty well done. Like James said, the beginning of the issue is very reminiscent of Spider-Man No More with Amazing Spider-Man number 50. It's very reminiscent of that. I completely agree with him on that. That doesn't really bother me as much. I guess I've just read that kind of story so many times that I'm just numb to it completely. But it didn't really have all that much of an effect on me, be it positive or negative. So I'd probably give this issue a thumbs up. I think it's a pretty decent issue. Is the good 100th issue? I mean, it does some good things for a centennial issue to do, but I do think it falters in some spots. I would give it a thumbs up. It's a decent enough issue. Not anything spectacular, not anything that'll blow your mind, but it's a decent enough story. And so now that we've got a thumb sideways on Amazing Spider-Man number 100 from James and a thumbs up from me, we will take a look at Amazing Spider-Man number 101. A monster called Morbius. Yes, running down the creative team here, Stan Lee, editor emeritus. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Roy Thomas, stand-in scripter. Gil Kane, artist as usual. Frank Giacoia, inker, artistic letterer. Basically, Peter Parker is just brooding about the fact that, oh my gosh, I have 6 arms and I am now officially a freak. As you would kind of do if you actually grew 6 arms. You would think, okay, I can never really go out and talk to anyone ever again because I'm officially a freak. Yeah, I think that's a pretty realistic reaction. So he's starting to think, okay, maybe I should just go on Ed Sullivan's show. I'd be able to name my own price on TV shows anywhere. Step right this way, folks. Only 25 cents at 2 box stops to see the Human Spider. Step right up and take a look at the freak. So those are the kind of things that are going through his head right now. Meanwhile, Gwen Stacy has called and has decided, hey, This is your lucky night, man o' mine. In honor of Betty Frieden's birthday, I've decided to play Liberated Woman and treat you to the R-rated flick of your choice. Wow.
I'm going to play Liberated Woman. Not be Liberated Woman by just doing it out the goodness of my heart. No, I'm going to play and pretend to be one.
Yeah, that's... Ooh, how scandalous.
Then when you read her dialogue about the movie choices, she completely undermines the whole Liberated Woman. She's like, we can go to a romantic comedy, and I could cry on your shoulder throughout the whole thing with the Kleenexes, or we can go see a scary movie where you can cover my eyes during the spicy parts. Really liberated there, Gwen.
Yes, but again, this was the early 70s. This was a different time than ours, James. So Peter kind of snips her out because he's kind of in a bad mood, and also he just can't see her, so he hangs up on her, and he thinks to himself, "Man, this is absolutely awful. What do I do?" And at that moment, he gets a call from Joseph Robbie Robertson at the Daily Bugle, and they're like, "Oh, hey, if you're still our part-time staff photog, yeah, we just got a tip on a foiled bank stick-up, and we need some pics. Thanks. By the way, I'm skipping town for a while, heading off a case of mono. I'll report in as soon as I get back. Sorry, Robbie, but I just can't do it." So he turns Robbie down, and obviously Jonah, being the selfish kind of greedy person that he is, doesn't care anything about Parker, doesn't care anything about the fact that Parker just said, oh, he's got mono, that's probably not good because mono's not fun to have. He's just like, oh my gosh, stop bringing about that punk kid on my time. So Robbie's like, Pete's always seemed a lad who can take care of himself. But in a world like today's, anything can happen. Anything could happen. Anything could. All right. Anyway, so Spider-Man decides, okay, I need to fix this right now. So who am I going to call? I'm going to call Doc Connors, because I know Doc Connors has a kind of summer house somewhere in the Hamptons, and it's got a fully equipped laboratory. So I can go there, do some science stuff. It's secluded. I can get away from everyone, and everything will be okay. So Doc Connors manages to give him that address because he always feels forever indebted to Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's always helped him out with the lizard debacle and all those, minor quibbles like that. Spidey manages to swing all the way to the Hamptons. Meanwhile, there's a boat out on the ocean, I guess, or the river or whatever. And they have a mysterious person aboard, and ever since they've brought aboard this mysterious person, their guys have been croaking left and right. And who is this mysterious man? Michael Morbius, and who we will learn to be a living vampire. He manages to escape the vessel before the sailors can take him out, and he manages to fly to the exact same house that Spider-Man is in the Hamptons. And so while Spidey's been there for 2 days straight, Morbius wakes up after landing there for a nap during daylight. Morbius wakes up, finds Spider-Man in the laboratory, and attacks him. And why? Must feed. I am so hungry. Like Nick Jameson always used to say on the 90s show. So they do a little bit of battle. Spider-Man decides to use his classic approach of witty banter and obviously just beating the shit out of people when dealing with Morbius. Morbius manages to pretty much incapacitate him. Well, not really incapacitate him, but just Morbius manages to stun him long enough, supposedly for him to take a shot at feeding on him, until Doc Connors comes in, sees the situation, and turns into the Lizard. Dun, dun, dun. Morbius versus the Lizard to be concluded in the next issue. I'll give my general thoughts on this issue real quick after I take a sip of water because my throat's getting dry. All right. I'll give my general thoughts on this issue real quick. I did think the Peter angst at the beginning was pretty solid. I thought it was pretty understandable given the context and the situation that he was in. I thought it was handled pretty well, how he's thinking, oh man, I'm just going to be a freak. People are going to line up to see the human spider, all that stuff. I thought that was pretty good. I liked seeing him, even though he was a jerk, I liked seeing him having to push away Gwen and Robbie. I thought that was a pretty understandable scenario. And obviously, I liked him reaching out to Doc Connors. Doc Connors has always been one of my favorite supporting characters in the Spider-Man mythos. So whenever the two get a chance to interact when Doc Connors isn't the Lizard, I always welcome that, and I appreciate those conversations. So that was a nice one-on-one for them to have, even if it was over the phone. Oh, excuse me. I will say something I didn't really like in this issue. I thought the Morbius scenes on the ship were pretty boring. I didn't find them to be all that engaging or really entertaining. They moved pretty slow for me. The pacing took a drastic dip in quality for at that point. It slowed the book down quite a bit, in my opinion, and I thought that really it just became tedious after it went on for 5, 6, 7 pages. I did not enjoy the Morbius scene really at all. I don't know. I guess it was just the nature of the beast with that. It was not appealing to me. And also, I didn't really like the artwork that much. Again, same artist. No offense to Gil Kane, it's just not my personal taste. I did think the fight between Spider-Man and Morbius at the end of the issue was fairly solid. However, I thought that was a pretty that was a pretty well done action sequence. Some good banter from Spider-Man, some good interactions, some good licks got in by both parties. So overall, I'd probably give this issue a thumb sideways. It's not my favorite issue, but it's not my least favorite issue. I think it's a solid enough debut for Morbius, but we'll get more into Morbius with 102 because that's where he really starts to come into his own. So, James, we'll go to you. What are you thinking of Amazing Spider-Man number 101 here?
It's an okay issue. I mean, Morbius is not one of my favorite villains when I think about Spider villains. Like, it was to the point that when the rumor came out around Spider-Man 4 that Morbius is going to be the villain, I'm like, okay, like that was like a strike one almost in my thought because I've never been a fan of Morbius. So I don't really care about this. It's to the point that the only part of the issue I actually kind of like is the Gwen part. Because it's classic Gwen Stacy. When you think why she was killed off 2 years later, literally, just go look at this page. She's all like, I'm going to play liberated woman by crying during a movie. And then when you say, no, I don't feel like going out tonight, Gwen, which is because of the arm situation, she starts crying on the phone. Well, then I guess I'll never see you again, Peter. Goodbye. What's that? You're going to be liberated woman, Gwen. But anyways, and then Peter, of course, is crying with both of his hands like this while his other arms are like wailing in the air. It's hilarious when you look at the panels in context. And again, it just reminds me of what's going on personally in my own personal life. God damn it. I understand your pain, Peter. Granted, I don't got 4 extra arms, but I still understand the pain you're going through, Peter. Kendrick Speeder.
Oh, James, do you need a hug?
No, I'm not. I'm making a joke here, John. But anyways, another thing I did was when I read this part, and I got up to the part where she goes, or we could take it, I'm Curious Yellow, and you can cover my eyes during the spicy parts. And I'm thinking, okay, what is she talking about? Is it a horror movie? Why would you want to cover up her eyes in the spice part? So I was curious about I Am Curious Yellow. And I looked up on Wikipedia. And by John's, oh my gosh, I take it he also looked this up?
No, whenever you say I look something up, that's never good.
Okay, the film was originally made in 1967. Didn't get released to 71 because it was banned by most states, including Massachusetts, for being pornographic. A movie that was going to be mass-produced had numerous shots of nudity, which you might be thinking is okay, nudity, that's in a lot of movies, what's the big deal? There is scenes of staged sexual intercourse. Again, a lot of movies have sex in it. But here's the one. There's a scene where you see the character, and this is not played off with like some camera magic or it's covered up. You literally see her giving a dude a blowjob. Clear as day, mouth on, you know what? Clear as day. And then that got the movie banned. So that's why Gwen's like, we can go see that, but you can cover my eyes during the spicy parts. Which I'm thinking, okay, I'm Peter Parker. I'm on a date with a beautiful blonde, bombshell Gwen Stacy. What college kid is going to cover her eyes during those parts? I'm sorry.
To be honest, I could see Peter Parker doing that. I kind of could, honestly.
Why would Gwen and Peter want to go see a movie where that's even going on? Because if the point of going to the movie is I'm going to cover her eyes when someone's getting a blowjob, why would you want to go see that movie? Wouldn't you then go to the other movie, like the Love Story she said that's out right now? Man, like, that Love Story that just came out. I already saw it with some friends, but I'll go see it again because I still got Kleenexes in my purse. Again, very liberated, Gwen.
I think we've earned the explicit tag on this episode. I think we've earned that at this point.
Oh, you're in college. You're 18, John. You can listen to it. It's not like Jam was on this episode. Then it would get
kind of creepy. If Jam was on here, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation. James and I would be in jail.
I would have the censored version.
James and I would be in jail right now.
No, it would be the censored version where we'll go,
there's a particular scene where they do something very graphic, and that's where I would drop it. But Jan's not on here. I can be my own nasty self because I'm making a joke and nobody can get offended. Except for one guy on a YouTube comment that's probably going to pop up now. Yeah, and the rest of it is just Spider-Man with 4 arms basically realizing what it is the day in the life of Doc Ock. Literally, this is the original Superior Spider-Man if you think about it.
Oh my god, I never really did think about it like that, but you're right.
The Morbius thing, it's hilarious because he has to keep on calling himself the living vampire, and how he gets his powers from the sunlight or the moonlight or what, the sunlight gives him his powers, or like lets him sleep. And it's obvious because similar to the 90s show where censorship really hurt Morbius there, in the comics, the comic code had, you can't have vampires, you can't have werewolves, any monster that's not like generic, like Godzilla radiated beast that gets taken out in one issue, you can't have. So Marvel's way of getting around it is by calling him, well, he's not a vampire, he's the living vampire. So he's not an undead zombie. So technically we can do it. And we'll tweak some of his backstory so that way it's technically not the same as the generic vampire. He doesn't get bit by a bat. It's a science experiment. See? So he's a science monster. So loophole, we get around it.
All right, James. So what are you thinking? You thinking thumbs up, sideways, down? What are you thinking for ASM 101 here?
I'm going to give it a thumb sideways, slightly up.
All right. Now,
the lizard parts lose me. It's like they literally for the lizard and they're like last minute, it feels like.
All right. Just moving on here to recap and final issue of Amazing Spider-Man number 102. We are plowing through these tonight. We're going to make some good time on this episode. We got Stan Lee, editor, Roy Thomas, writer, Gil Kane, artist, Frank Giacoya, inker, Art Simic letterer. That's how he's credited for this issue. The first page is pretty much just a recap explaining exactly how Spider-Man, Morbius, and Dr. Connors got into the situation they're in. Morbius and the Lizard decide to beat the crap out of one another, and Spider-Man's like, I kind of feel like I should get in on this, but I don't think I could really help. Maybe I should just let them destroy each other because I don't know if I could really take either of them in my current state. I don't want either of them to get hurt, but I don't think that's really up to me at this point, especially with how volatile both of them are being.
You know what I just realized? If Dan Slott wrote this issue, he would put a quip in there where Peter would probably say, I would love to help one of them, but my hands are full.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh, where was I in this recap? Oh yeah, so Morbius manages to knock the Lizard back into like a power generator or whatever, and it knocks him out. Morbius actually feeds on the Lizard until Spider-Man comes in and knocks him away. Morbius flees, and the Lizard wakes up, but it's actually revealed that he now has the mind of Dr. Curt Connors. And they realize that because Morbius fed on him, it actually had some sort of effect that sort of reverted the transformation, but not completely. So while Dr. Connors starts to revert back to his human form, he actually reverts back to a human, but actually with scales this time. He's not able to go all the way just because of, of what Morbius did to him. So Spider-Man and the Lizard start to try to work up a cure for both the Lizard's condition and for Spider-Man's condition. And there's actually a panel in there where Spider-Man is drawn with only 2 arms. It's at the bottom of page 10 for those of you who are curious. They actually forget to draw the other 4 arms on Spider-Man.
Oh my god, I just went to that panel once you said it. Oh my god, it's right.
Yeah, it's
classic Spider-Man.
I guess the editor just completely forgot that part. Okay. Don't worry, Stan. We love you. So they're having a little bit of trouble with the serum, but they realize, okay, it's actually an enzyme that Morbius actually put into me when he bit me that has allowed me to make this that has allowed me to sort of revert back to Dr. Connors slightly. If we can get that enzyme and combine it with the serum, then we could possibly cure both of us. So they go out and find Morbius. Meanwhile, Morbius manages to find a place of solitude and resting in an abandoned warehouse, and that's where he starts to dream. He starts to dream a dream. Wow. He starts to dream.
Acid trip. Because in the Gail Kane artist reign, starting with the drug issue to now, everybody gets an acid trip.
Yeah, if you look at page 13, which is the splash page that begins part 2, the way it began. Yeah, that definitely looks like Morbius has been tripping.
His eyes are blacked out, and he has all these swirls and like pows around him.
All right, but he's dreaming about his origin. He and his lab partner Nikos are trying to conduct an experiment with vampire bats because he's trying to electrically shock his blood to cure himself of a rare blood disease that is slowly crippling him and is actually going to take him out within a while. He and Nikos intend to do the rest of their work on a ship, overseas, but Morbius's fiance or just significant other, Martine, says, "No, you are not going without me." So she manages to get onto the ship with them. Morbius and Nikos conduct the experiment, but it doesn't go exactly as they planned, and Morbius turns into a living vampire. And his first victim is Nikos. And he's so horrified by what he'd done, he jumps overboard and actually tries to commit suicide until the beast within him decides that he wants to live. So he gets up to the surface, he doesn't drown, and it shows him swimming to the ship that he was on in the previous issue, and that's the end of the origin story. So meanwhile, just a shady dude in a hat manages to find Morbius in the abandoned warehouse that he's sleeping in, and Morbius feeds on him as well. Meanwhile, a local TV news station gets reports of a night prowler who's been hurting people and doing all these awful, horrible things. And just at that moment, Spider-Man and the Lizard are swinging through New York City, attempting to find the culprit in question. So Dr. Connors is having a little bit of trouble controlling the Lizard persona and trying, not to turn into the rabid beast that he is. Meanwhile, Gwen Stacy is, brooding about the fact that Peter Parker turned down her offer to go see a porn movie with a XXX rating, as James just informed us.
No wonder she went to go bang Norman Osborn around this time.
Yeah, a girl's got to get off somehow. I'm going to get hate mail for that. Apologies to anyone I just offended. She's
a liberated woman. She's in the fetal position, sitting on the couch, bawling her eyes out because the guy didn't want to go to a movie with her.
I apologize for anyone I just offended.
No wonder she's dead in the matter of 2 years.
So while she's doing that, Jonah and Robbie are actually having a conversation about how the Daily Bugle is in trouble, and if something doesn't happen fast, there won't be a Daily Bugle. Dun dun dun. So Morbius is flying through the city, and Spider-Man and the Lizard managed to catch up to him. They managed to put up a decent enough fight to knock Morbius to the ground, and they managed to get a sample of Morbius's blood, which has the enzyme in it. They mix it with the serum, and it actually manages to revert the Lizard to his human form of Dr. Kirk Connors. But Morbius gets up, snatches the serum, and flies away. But Spider-Man, the ever-loving superhero that he is, manages to catch Morbius and stop him. But Morbius, unfortunately, falls into the Hudson River, and he is supposedly he drowns and is taken out forever. Spider-Man takes
by a shark.
Yes, according to a what if, he got eaten by a shark, but obviously he didn't because that's a what if. But that's the best what if story I've ever heard. Spider-Man takes the serum and he's reverted back to his normal form of 2 arms. The other 4 arms vanish, and Spider-Man's brooding about, I lost Morbius. I left him there. Maybe that's what he wanted, Spider-Man. Maybe that's what he really wanted all the time. And that's the end of the issue. So James, we'll go to you.
I think he wanted blood.
That's what he always wanted. James, we'll go to you first. What are you thinking of Amazing Spider-Man number 102 here?
It's okay. It's mostly just fight. This is the first time you get the whole Connors as the Lizard, but yet his mind's still intact, and it causes a lot of confusion later. Where you're still to this day where you're like, okay, is Connors in control of the Lizard all this time, or is it like a Jekyll and Hyde thing? And because this issue is cool, like, oh, I finally got control of the Lizard. I could talk normally and everything. But then you get like later issues and later runs where it's like the Lizard was in control the whole time, or it was Connors who was always controlling the Lizard. It was Connors' evil plans. And so it's kind of confusing once you tied in all that stuff. But just going by this, it's the first time they have done anything like this. and it's actually pretty well written, saying like, and it's actually kind of weird. It had to be weird. Here's the Lizard, who for years, when the Ditko and the Ramita, has been this gigantic green scale foam, coming out of his mouth, the teeth, the tongue, I want to turn the human race into lizards. And here he is like, so can you pass me today's newspaper, Spider-Man? Oh, I see the Mets one. It's kind of weird to see him talking.
You just wait for him to pull out his reading specs.
First time ever you had to see the Lizard acting civilized, had to be like, what the hell is going on here? And like I said, but now it's to the point that it's like been there, done that almost. It's like been buried. That part's okay. Spider-Man Morbius fight, and it's just a fight. You get more of, the Gwen crying. I mean, how many jokes can we make about that? I mean, literally, I like Gwen. She's one of my favorite comic book characters, but there's a reason why she died. Being in the fetal position crying because a guy didn't want to go to see a goddamn porno with you. No wonder you were dead in 2 years. I kid you not. I can see why the writers were like, kill her now.
All right.
And like I said, this is coming from a fan of Gwen Stacy. I love the Gwen Stacy character, but there's reasons why they wrote himself in that hole, and you can see it right there. But besides that, it's a pretty decent issue. Good fight scenes. Morbius gets eaten by a shark in a what if, and I don't care what anybody else says. That's still my canon, but because he's a vampire, the shark didn't kill him. That's my canon. The shark came in, it ate him whole, and because he's a vampire, he somehow lived. And that's the way I'm sticking to it.
Good enough for me.
It's a really good issue. Like, not really much I can complain about this one, so I'll give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, I got to agree. I enjoyed this issue quite a bit as well. I thought that, I wasn't too keen on the Morbius scenes in the previous issue, but I thought the origin of Morbius here was actually pretty well done. It was actually I thought it was well told. I thought it was very emotionally impactful. I thought that the message they were trying to get across and, the reaction they were trying to generate, I thought they were pretty successful on both of those fronts. So I definitely did enjoy the Morbius origin sequence. Like James said, I enjoyed seeing the Lizard as a civilized person. I waited for him to put on his reading specs and drink his cup of Joe while he was reading the newspaper sports section. I really enjoyed that. What else did I enjoy in this issue? Like James said, I enjoyed the action sequences. The fight at the beginning is pretty entertaining, as is the fight at the end. I like seeing Spider-Man and Doc Connors work together on science stuff. We've seen this before in the Master Planner arc. We've seen it before in the first appearance of the Rhino. We've seen it multiple times. I always enjoy those little bits. Like I said, I really enjoyed the pairing of Spider-Man and Dr. Connors. And overall, I just thought this was a solid cap to this 3-part story. I thought it was a solid ending to the arc. And overall, I give it a thumbs up. I definitely approve of this issue. I thought it was a very well-crafted comic book. So, James, we'll just get some general thoughts right now. What do you think of this Six-Arm Saga in general? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you prefer the 90s show? Do you prefer the comic? What do you think of the Six-Arm Saga?
It doesn't really. It's 70s cheese. Like this is to the point of the Bronze Age is coming up, and this is the leftover of a Silver Age story to me. It's very cheesy, very bizarre, very science fiction. The Lizard, I felt like was thrown in there last minute. They would just had to be Spider-Man and Morbius. I think it would have worked out better. But they threw Lizard in there for God knows what reason. I still don't know why. It's just